and welcome to episode 29 of FilmStop. Guys, we've just watched Dune, and this is going to be a killer episode. Well, alright, I'm gonna preface that by saying that we are a few bottles of wine down. And by we have some special guests on. Before we get on to the guests, guys, like, share, subscribe, hit that follow button on Spotify, please. Like I said, I'll keep saying this. It helps my ego, please. Also, you can follow us at FilmStop3, because 3 is the place to be. I have no idea why I said that. Just follow us. You got 15 followers there. But we're trending upwards in our downloads, so keep downloading, keep listening. Thank you for being here.
That's right, you're such a sellout.
All right, well, with that, let me introduce Bo. Hey, Bo.
What up?
And then there's Meghna, who's co-hosting. Well, she's going to try to co-host with me.
I sometimes do.
And then 2 special guests. I know these guys through Kellogg the same way I know Bo, and I love them. I'm so excited for them to be here to voice their opinions. Hey, Carly. Hey, Steve.
Hi.
What up, buddy?
I'm very excited that you guys are here. How are you feeling?
I feel really spectacular.
Awesome.
Big night. Big
Yes,
night.
very big night. So we have a tradition at FilmStop where any new guest has to talk a little bit about themselves and give us their top favorites. They can do top 3 or 4 or 5, whatever. But basically, the point is we're trying to ground our listeners to your opinions. So, Carly, why don't you start us off with a little bit about yourself and your favorites?
Okay. So Bo, Suraj, and I went to Kellogg together and also spent like 3 magical weeks in Bolivia.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's kind of important to mention. We've seen things. So
And you almost died biking down that crazy.
yeah, Suraj tried to he did get me to go down a mountain bike road called the Death Road. And I did almost die. Anyway, I'll talk about my favorite movies. I was literally doing an icebreaker at work today, and one of the questions was, what's your favorite film of all time? Or no. It was, what film would you bring on a desert island?
Oh, that's interesting.
That's
Actually,
different.
that's better than the question that I have.
Okay, so my answer to that, and it's, it also asked favorite book, favorite whatever, and I did film last, even though it was listed first, because I really wasn't sure, and I'm more of a TV person and a book person than a movie person, frankly. I ended up with Mother.
Oh, you mean Mother? Because there's like an exclamation point at that name.
Yes, yeah. Mother exclamation point
Yeah.
is what I chose, because there's a lot of nuance and detail that I feel like you could watch on a desert island repeatedly and see something new in a consistent way. But I also like the bizarro, allegorical nature of that movie.
So someday we'll have to do an episode where you can talk me out of my opinion on that movie, because I have very strong opinions about that movie.
Are they negative?
Yes,
Okay.
a little bit, and mainly because I feel like it's a. Anyways, it's an
I've actually
interesting.
never even seen that movie because I refuse to watch it.
Yeah.
Just because like the way people describe that they like it makes me want to just stab my eyes out.
It's
I just can't even handle it. Like
Yeah.
it's like I feel like it's. I'm sorry, babe. I feel like it's. Just,
Why don't you
it's
introduce?
so over the top.
Why don't you
Yeah.
introduce yourself?
Oh, nice.
You still
Straight
like,
to the
don't you still
point.
have movies to cover?
No, I've said enough.
All right, Steve. I am Carly's husband, and I know the crew here from Kellogg, and so I really feel aligned to Meghna because we're just the JVs, right? Just
Joint ventures.
Do you know that term,
joint
Meghna?
ventures.
I just got to know.
Yeah.
Significant others
All
for
the
any
plus-
normal person.
All the plus ones at Kellogg's are JVs, so that's what we are,
Okay.
which is lovely. Favorite movie of all time? Gosh, I should have put more thought into this.
Can I just say, Mother is not my favorite movie of all time. It's what I could conjure today in an icebreaker. But I do like it.
But on an island, well, that's a separate
Go on.
discussion. Yes, sorry.
It is what you brought up. I would do. Let's go with favorite series of all time, and I'm gonna have to go with Breaking Bad.
Nice.
And that kind of hurts me not to say The Wire, but I would have to say Breaking Bad because I spent 16 months living in New Mexico.
Oh.
And so Breaking Bad, for all the reasons it's incredible, also does like capture Albuquerque so well. And that's like a lovely little community that just does a great job of being a wonderful part of.
I'm curious what you were doing in New Mexico. B, I'm really interested in Albuquerque, like just to visit.
Yeah, Albuquerque's incredible. I think everybody should go to Albuquerque because it's also only like an hour from Santa Fe. Unbelievable food, really cool culture, just like a great city. It's called the Land of Enchantment because you go there and you just, or no, Land of Entrapment because you go there and you can't
Those
leave.
are very different.
Yeah, Entrapment, that's right. No, Albuquerque's the shit, and Breaking Bad just captured that city so well for me. So I'll have to go with that. My favorite series of all time. And I'll go with a movie I just watched recently that was incredible, The Suicide Squad. One by James Gunn.
It's so good.
That was so good.
So good.
And the first one was such shit that I didn't want. I'm like, why didn't they give it a different name so I could know what the hell was going on?
Yeah.
I turned it on by accident, and it was amazing.
They're literally trying to rewrite history with that one. And I think they did a good job.
John Cena.
Oh my
cast
god,
him in more
Peacemaker.
movies.
Oh yeah. Did you see the trailer for Peacemaker?
No.
Oh yeah,
I didn't know he has his own movie.
He's getting
based
a
on
show.
that performance.
HBO Max. Yeah, he's getting a show on HBO Max.
Yeah. Well, what's his line? Like, he'll do anything for peace. And he'll kill anybody to get it. Yeah.
Women, children. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
If I gotta kill.
Really admirable.
Bo is nodding his head.
That's the right answer.
Oh my god.
It's on HBO Max. Segway. Dune is on HBO Max.
But don't watch it.
Yes, but if you watch it on HBO Max, please disconnect. No, continue listening because I like having listeners. But yeah, I'm really upset about you.
Can I say something quickly? We were earlier contemplating whether or not to go to this one very, we'll call it...
Sketchy.
Sure. Theater, and Bo mentioned we could stream it, and Suraj's response was, I would rather not see it than stream it.
Yes.
He's not wrong. Yeah.
So the movie is made by Denis Villeneuve, and it is Dune. Like, the content is as theatrically enticing as any content could possibly be. And so with that, Carly, I want to dive into the movie, and I want to talk real quick. I'm going to give a synopsis on the movie, but just so everyone is sort of aligned, we're going to do spoiler-free at first. We're going to talk about the movie, our opinions, whether we recommend it or not, and then we're going to dive into spoiler-filled discussions about it. Spoiler-filled, this is specifically for Bo. Spoiler-filled discussions are only up to the point that the movie covers in the book. Do not go further than that.
Why are you pointing this at me?
I just like pointing.
Well, you're the
things
only
out.
one here who's read the book.
That is also true.
And you keep alluding to almost saying shit about what happened
I
past the end of the
literally
movie.
haven't said
Oh yeah. All right. So the movie is based on a very, very famous book series, and the book essentially written by Frank Hilbert. Yeah.
Is it that famous?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's
The
pretty
book
famous.
is very famous.
In
Herbert.
sci-fi circles, it's...
Frank Herbert, sorry, yeah. Like you said, sci-fi circle is very famous, and it's more on the side of like Foundation than as Star Wars, because it takes the space opera into more of a sci-fi, and space is just a construct. It's more political in that sense. And so the synopsis: Paul Atreides, a brilliant and gifted young man born into a great destiny beyond his understanding, must travel to the most dangerous planet in the universe to ensure the future of his family and his people.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Is anyone disappointed that his name's just Paul?
Yes.
I mean,
that was really weird. I kept thinking that too.
I was like, are they saying Paul?
Yeah,
like
why is his name
Paul?
Paul?
Yeah.
Go on.
As malevolent forces explode into conflict over the planet's exclusive supply of the most precious resource in existence, only those who can conquer their own fear will survive. This is pretty good, because this does not really give anything out about the movie. If you haven't watched the trailers, watch the trailer. I want to start this discussion off with a very simple question to everyone here. Did you like the movie? I'm gonna start off with Carly. What do you think?
I liked it. I will be honest. I was coming down from sort of the intensity of the workday, and I found the sound alarming.
Mm-hmm.
It was like stressful until I could sort of transition over to the world we were in now. I liked someone said world building. I didn't know that term, but there was good world building. And I would like to make a comment. So the feeling it gave me was very good. So I liked it overall. I liked the story. I liked the characters. I liked the world building. I spent a lot of time thinking about why are the conquerors white people with bagpipes?
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't even think about that. The backpack, was that a thing in the book? Not that I want to pull the thing about
not as
both, but...
well. I mean, okay, there was definitely a racial component to the book. But
Yeah.
we'll get into that.
Yeah, but that's interesting that you bring that up, because I guess that it's good that it came through in some sense.
It's good that it came. I'm like, is it good that it came
Well,
through?
not the whole point of the message is not good, but like I feel like the point that it came through is good, because the book does go through some of those aspects.
So what I'm left thinking is like, is this a lazy author who just thinks about the dominant narratives of white people, or is it more?
Oh, I see what you mean.
Is it intentionally critical of that? So that's what I was trying to figure out.
Yeah, not to give anything away, but no.
Okay, well that's helpful.
Regardless of that, I guess let me ask you this, right? Like, did you get entertained by the movie? Right, like that's my core question.
I don't want to talk about that's so much less interesting than the sociological implications. Yes, I thoroughly entertained.
Okay.
Thoroughly entertained.
Because I feel like themes, I think will be better for us to discuss those in depth when we get into the spoiler side, but I don't disagree with where you're going with this discussion.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me ask you, Steve. What did you, in general, like, sort of feel after walking out of that theater?
Yeah, I knew nothing about Dune. I've never read the book, avoided all spoilers, barely watched the trailer because I knew we were doing this, so I was pretty excited about it and absolutely entertained. Enjoyed the movie. I thought it was good.
What do you think worked best for you?
I'm really glad we did see it in the theater and didn't stream it. I feel like the overall production for the theater was really built for that. So I thought that was fantastic, just between the score and some of the imagery.
Yeah.
So that was great. It was kind of a bummer that we watched it on a Friday night and sat second to the last back row. And we had some chatty teens behind us, but I hit him with a good shush. And so that made me feel like a badass.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
Thought I had to put my shield up for a second, but it all worked out. So yeah, I mean, fun, entertaining movie. It was also long, 2.5 hours. I was a little worried about that going in, but it didn't feel as long as it was. So I think that portends well, because it's not like it was that fast paced. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree about the theatrical experience aspect of it, because I feel that now more than ever, like, I think there's certain movies that it's better served to actually give them the time and effort to actually go to the theaters. And I feel like Dune, we talked about Bond the other day. I think there's certain movies that are worth going back into theaters for. Anyways, Bo, what do you think?
Yeah, so to preface this, similar to Steve, except the opposite of Steve in some ways, I read the book probably a decade ago.
That's literally the opposite of Steve. He hasn't read it.
Yeah, exactly, the opposite of Steve. But, the same kind of line of thought, right? And it's one of my favorite sci-fi books. Like, I think it's a seminal work in a lot of ways. And this was, like, in a lot of ways, a trip down memory lane, which is, I think, a credit to how faithful it was and how well it brought out the elements of the book. Like, I just like every other scene, it was like deja vu almost, right? And again, I haven't read this for like 10 years, so it's not, I don't remember every detail, but every scene was like, oh, yes, this is triggering deep memories in me. So yes, I very much enjoyed it. The sound was awesome. It was definitely a bright spot, which, again, it's a good thing we saw it in the theaters. Well, one slight criticism, I thought that some of the dialogue, and I thought important dialogue, was a little bit muted by the score. But that's a very yeah. Well, Hans Zimmer is Hans Zimmer, but
Yeah.
I firmly agree with that.
yeah.
Yeah.
But that's a minor criticism because I kind of knew what they were gonna say. So anyway, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Would recommend. 10 out of 10. Do it.
But okay, so
Maybe not 10 out of 10. Yeah, it's good.
you talked about a little bit about like the sci-fi value of that literary content, right?
Yes.
How do you feel like the movie sort of fits into the sci-fi construct of the world, of cinema world? Sorry.
It's a hard question to answer because it's not like the same kind of sci-fi that's like very science-based necessarily. It's more space fantasy in a lot of ways. But I thought it was very faithful to the world.
Mm-hmm.
So no issues there. And I thought it brought it out in a very the way that I mentioned, like I had feelings of deja vu because like it brought it out in the ways that I kind of imagined it in a lot of ways.
You wanna, yeah.
However you just put that it wasn't focused on the sci-fi or like the mechanics of fictional science, I disagree. I think there are these elements of, I don't think it's a spoiler to say they're in the desert and they have creative ways to retain water and like just really creative things where if you are like a failed scientist and you write sci-fi, I don't know, that's not what I think of sci-fi writers, but the creativity of the science of this magical, otherworldly world, very clever.
But it's not like a hard sci-fi is I think the point.
Okay.
All right, so Meghna, what's your opinion on Dune?
I liked the movie, and I think it was a good sci-fi movie, well done, and it was not just totally all about it being a sci-fi movie. It was more than that, which was good. I liked it as it was kind of an immersive experience into this beautiful planet called Dune. And I think it is a good watch.
I like that you said beautiful planet because like they're clearly trying to show the harshness of it, but I like that you use beautiful because that's how the camera captured it in some sense.
Yeah.
So I want to kind of echo all of you guys. I'm not going to repeat a lot of the stuff that you guys have already said, but what I would like to add to this is that Dune has been done before with David Lynch, right? He's a great filmmaker, but the problem I feel like converting a literary material like this into a movie is that you're never going to be able to capture some of the specific nuances that like a book like this has without diving into the book or anything. That like there are certain nuances where, for example, the book goes into mental states of the characters. How do you portray that? I feel that Denis Villeneuve did a great job in being able to do that. And I think the narrative styles and decisions and choices that they made just worked very well. Pivoting, performances. What did you guys think? I mean, this movie is kind of filled with great stars, right? You got Timothée Chalamet, you got
Oscar Isaac.
Oscar Isaac. You got Rebecca Ferguson. You got Josh Brolin, Stellan Skarsgård, Zendaya, Dave Bautista. Well, he's not a great actor, I don't think, but
He's not a great actor. But he fit the role very well.
Who is that? What character?
Bautista, the really dumb one.
Raban?
The nephew.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
the
nephew.
nephew.
Which actually is a merge of a character, but yeah.
Oh, he's the guy from the thing with the raccoon.
Yes, he
Yes.
is. Yeah. Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah. So what did you get? What performance? Let me ask you guys this: what performance stood out to you, and why? Let me start with Bo.
You catch me flat-footed like that. Okay. That's a good question. I don't know that. I thought maybe this is my biases, but I liked Skarsgård.
Interesting.
I mean, I don't like him, but that's the point,
Yeah.
right? I thought he had he performed the role very well. And I thought that him and Brolin probably, if I had to call standouts, would probably be my picks. No, those two and Lady Jessica.
Are you just gonna name every character?
Yeah.
You
Nice.
have like
Nice.
3 more to go.
No,
You're halfway there.
I didn't think Paul was particularly great. I didn't think Jason Momoa
Well, we
was
didn't ask who
great.
you did like.
Yeah, that's true.
Who was the standout? Who just
But yeah, those 3 characters I would say probably for me were the better performers.
For me, it was hands down the mom.
Okay. Yeah. Rebecca Ferguson.
I thought the mom,
that
too.
performance was incredible.
Yeah.
There was a lot of depth there. I know we're not doing spoilers right now, but
Yeah.
awesome performance.
Yeah.
Who? What's that actress?
Is it Rebecca Ferguson? Yeah. The mother? Yeah.
She was definitely, I agree, she was definitely helped by the role that character played in this first part of the book. So
Yeah. Well, I think to kind of echo you on that, I think she emotes some of the sort of mental states that she is going through really well. And that's, I think, a big part of what I was saying earlier is that, like, those mental states, how do you communicate that? The actor is going to be doing that. I actually, to kind of talk a little bit on the flip side of that, I felt like Timothée Chalamet didn't do a great job in certain sequences where I felt like there was more that he should have communicated. He didn't as much. I agree with you on Rebecca Ferguson. I think she was the best. And she also got the most, I would say, meaty role to actually shine off of. Yeah.
yeah, she had really fertile material.
Yeah. Carly, what about you?
On Timothée Chalamet, I couldn't think of his first name the whole...
Paul?
No, I just was like in my mind he was Chalamet. I couldn't get Timothy.
He looks like a Timothy though.
He does. Now that once I saw it, I was like, oh, fucking Timothy. He, I was still transitioning to the movie when he delivered the line, "Give me the water" or whatever.
Give me the water.
And I just felt like, you goofball child, you're pretend acting or what?
Yeah.
But he had better moments, and I just wasn't like transitioned into it.
Okay. Yeah, where he's asked to use the voice.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. What about you, Megan?
Well, I think the mom did a great job. I do not hate Paul, and I also like the sandworm because it's just amazing, and you just want to be eaten by the sandworm just to know how the experience would be like.
Oh my god!
It's so amazing because if you just come randomly from somewhere and people would just,
Magna, that is so vulgar.
Oh my god, now that you say it, the insides throbbing, the visuals of that come to my mind, and the weird hair-like structures. Oh my god.
I guess it's the teeth.
Yeah, well, I think it's the teeth, I'm not sure. Alright, guys. I'm going to ask you guys this very simple question. On a scale of do not watch this to watch it on a lazy day when you don't have anything else to watch to all the way to drop whatever the hell you're doing and watch it right now. We'll add watch it in the theaters versus streaming. Where do you guys think this lies? Steve, let's start with you.
So definitely try to watch it in the theaters if you can. For what we talked about before, between the score and the visuals, I would say this is more of like a lazy day if you don't have anything going on movie, because it is slow and you do have to pay attention. And so if things are competing for your time or competing for your attention, I think it's going to be hard to keep up with, at least as somebody who's never seen or read the books before or seen any of the other movies. So
yeah,
I felt like I really had to be clued in just to try to figure out what the hell is going on.
That's a great point, because some people get some I say, because I'm speaking about myself, you get a little drifted on the thought that oh, this is material that I've previously consumed, blah blah blah. But I totally sort of see why you would say that. What do you think, Carly?
I liked the pace. That's not the question. I think it needs to be seen in the theaters, and you need to pay attention to it.
Okay.
The pace to me is lovely. I like sort of a slow meandering something or other. But at the same time, I felt like there were these climaxes that happened much earlier in the arc of a story than would typically happen. So without giving any spoilers away, there are some big events that I feel like other movies would spend the entire time building to. And so I liked that.
I know what you're talking about, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, again, I'm biased because I have read the book and it's one of my favorite sci-fi novels. I think definitely go watch it as soon as you can and in theaters because the sound and the big screen does make a difference for this movie.
Meghna?
I think I agree with Steve. Watch it on a day where you're willing to pay attention to what's happening because you would need that. So yeah, I mean, don't drop everything and watch it, but just watch it when you're prepared to watch it.
All right, I'm going to preface this by saying I am very biased. In fact, I told you on the last episode that you should go watch it, and I hadn't even seen the movie. I think you need to watch it in the theaters. I do think that, in some sense, theatrical experience has been missing from most lives for the past year and a half. And I think this is a movie that resonates the reason to go watch a movie in the theaters. Like, it's nice to watch it with a bunch of people, not annoying kids sitting behind you, but in general, the sound, the cinematography, the amount of effort, the details of the water slipping off of this ship that's floating upwards from the bottom of the sea, like the details of everything that counts from VFX to CGI makes it worth of an experience to go watch in the theaters. I'm just gonna say that. So, with that, we're going to dive into spoiler-filled discussions. If you have not watched this movie, please don't stick around. If you have read the book, I'll say please don't stick around for this next part. Watch the movie and come back. But we'll start this session right after this break. Alright guys, welcome back. We are talking about Dune, the movie. We're talking spoilers now, so please do not stick with us if you have not watched the movie.
Or do.
Well, no. Don't listen to Bo. Bo knows a lot about movies, but he sometimes is just really drunk.
I think Bo's just upset about Duncan.
Oh.
Spoiler!
All right.
Duncan dies.
Thanks for the segue, guys. We're going to talk a little bit about what, Carly, you hit upon, which is these sort of climactic plot features, right? The movie is pretty subverting expectations in certain points, right? You don't expect Leto Atreides to die. You don't expect there to be a plot for him to try and kill Baron Harkonnen in the first half of the movie, let alone like sort of getting to the end. You don't expect Duncan to die, who's been set up as like somewhat of a like savior for the Messiah or whatever. What did you guys? Yeah. What did you guys feel about these sort of character arcs that were sort of almost, I would say like micro arcs in the grand scheme of things? Steve, why don't you chime in?
Yeah, honestly, as much as I enjoyed the movie, I feel like a lot of the character arcs were very incomplete. And I think maybe that's just because it's part one versus part two. I also didn't know anything about the film or the story.
Yeah.
So I had no notions going into who these people would be. Mm-hmm. And so for me, a lot of the appeal of this was built around just the overall production of the piece versus an individual character study, which I thought was lacking. Things are set up well where it could get there, but this definitely felt like half of one larger movie.
Yeah. I agree with that sort of last comment there. What about you, Meghna?
I think it made more sense because I remember when the movie started, it was about how the name came up, and then there was this part one that came up, which kind of, I think that kind of explains how the characters are not well defined in the first part, and maybe we have a lot to see in the second one. So, yeah.
But did you feel like it had these sort of like climactic moments that left you sort of wanting more? Or were you actually pretty cool with that because it was subverting expectations? Like, which side of that spectrum were you at?
No, I think I would definitely want more. So,
okay.
Yeah.
What about you, Bo?
I mean, I read the books, so the
we don't need to know that again, by the way. Like, we know that.
Yeah, but to what Steve is saying is that, like, this is definitely part one in a larger thing, right? What everyone kind of viewed as the climax. And within the movie, I guess you could say it as the climax. It's really more of the inciting incident in terms of the larger frame of the story. Yeah. So the story is Paul's, and, the characters, like, they're important to set up Paul's story, but it's Paul's story.
Yeah. Carly?
To me, the story is important, but in some ways ancillary. I think, to me, it's a commentary. I mean, like, I think, space odysseys, is that a term? Did you say that?
Yeah.
Are in that way. And it did sort of divert the expectations of space odysseys in terms of sort of the pacing and when key events happen. But I felt like there's it's okay that it sort of meandered. I didn't necessarily feel like it was incomplete. I felt like it was just the expression of like some people in their life in a moment of competing societies in space that we just there's larger themes to draw from that.
When you see something like this rich and this dense with so much character development possible, and part of my feeling was there was just too much for them to get to. Don't you ever just wish that this was an HBO series? Like, instead of watching the Dune Part 1 movie, if we just could have watched Season 1 for 10 to 12 hours on HBO. Because
The thoughts
it would be
occur
so
to me,
interesting, right? And I always go back to Game of Thrones, but
I was
it's like,
about
just
to
give
say
it
that.
more...
Yeah.
Like, there's so much here. Like, give it more space.
So each planet is controlled by the kind of
Houses
families
or-
or
yeah.
houses.
There's so much there.
Yeah.
I think that, though, like, the truth is the book doesn't go into it as much as you might think.
Yeah, and I want to kind of talk. Well, so if I were to answer that question, right, like my thing is that some content actually is really great for a series type format, like Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings. Actually, even could be told in a series type format really well, because you know that they've actually etched out each of those singular sort of pieces of that world, details of the world really well. In this case, I think that the book is written in a very, I would say, like, chapter-driven way, where each chapter is a very succinct sort of... It's more of, like, here are all the colors of this particular moment, rather than here are all the colors for the entire universe. And in that sense, I think that, like, literary-wise, I don't think there is enough content for more than maybe a 6-episode series, in my opinion. I will, however, agree with you that, if there is given a strong writer at the helm of this, I think, and like HBO is backing this with good budgets, I think that there is a lot of good stuff that they can extract. Like, what is Duncan, Idaho's story? What is, like, Gurney's? Like, there's a lot of, like, they reference the grandfather and the bull, and like they referencing all these other things. I think there might be stories to extract out of there, but yeah, I feel like that would be outside of the Dune purview in my mind.
What was his name? Duncan, Idaho?
I thought
Yeah.
it was,
Like the state?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was Duncan, Utah.
No, it was definitely Idaho.
I guess maybe that makes Paul seem a little better.
I thought Duncan was a goofy name to give to Jason Momoa.
Especially Idaho.
The thing, though, with the Paul is that, like, I think Paul's a very purposeful name in that it is a very everyman type name, and without going into spoilers.
Everyman for white people.
Okay.
Well, I don't disagree with that.
Well,
I mean, okay, so this book was also written quite a while back. I'm trying to look for the exact date, and I'm sure
like
I can
50s
find
or
it.
60s.
Yeah, 50s or 60s.
Oh.
So there is that context to it, right? But
Gosh, is it that old?
yeah, it's a very, like, now
All
if you...
right, well, that makes me like it a hell of a lot more. That's
Right, that's what I was going to say. Like, doesn't that actually put some context on some of these
Yeah.
things that
Yeah.
you're seeing? Also, it's based in, like, what is it, 100th century? Yeah, so it's way the hell in the future, and I feel that kind of enables it to kind of skip some of these, like, easy sort of sci-fi sort of plot things that you can take, right? Like,
it's where technology gets really alien weird to the point that it's basically magic and fantasy.
well, it's more than that. I think it's at that point where technology has sort of gone past its maturity and peak and all of that stuff. Like, you're at a point where you're kind of working with what space has got to offer. Like, you're even beyond exploring space waste for whatever reason, right? Like, you're not even talking about what other planets may have or not have to that extent, because you have already figured out what the other planets have.
So I have a question about the travel and the technology, not to divert this too much, but The big rings outside the planet where they were popped from, are those like transportation rings?
Yes.
So they're not actually flying through space forever. They just pop through these portals and get where they need to go.
Yeah, so the way the system in that world works is that you have interstellar travel, but like there's no computer technology because there was like, I don't know, AI wars or whatever. And so you have this, they mention it in like a sentence. Travel,
literally a sentence. Yeah.
Literally a sentence, right? The Spacer Guild. And they are humans nominally, but like they've jumped up on so much spice that they can literally navigate through the universe and understand like the straight path, jumping way past light speed and not hitting any suns and stuff like that. That's the way they do interstellar travel.
Which is why I feel like technology, like this is so far in the future that technology takes a backseat, is because like it's about spice, which is literally a cyclical thing when you go back in time, right? I mean, it is about spice because spice powers everything, and
I mean, let's be real, it's an allegory for petroleum.
Yeah, well, petroleum of its time, because you think that like coal, you think that petroleum, you think you go way back, whatever else you may want to talk about in a specific age, right? But I think regardless, the key is that it's not really talking about the technology. It's not really talking about all these other things.
Now it's Bitcoin.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, Bitcoin. All right, that's a good plug for cryptocurrency. All right, going back to the movie, I do want to talk a little bit about how they, in your opinions, like if this first part of this movie has done enough to build a world that has intrigued you for the sequel. Are you interested or really wanting the next part? Or are you kind of like, yeah, I'll maybe watch it when it comes out? Carly?
I was kind of captivated. I can't get into, well, no. I know that there is like an importance from a pop culture standpoint around like Star Wars, Star Trek, whatever, but I kind of just missed whatever that moment was.
Mm-hmm.
I can picture a world where I and others who didn't get on the Star Wars bandwagon are kind of continually captivated by this world. And I'm interested too, now that you say it, in the fact that being captivated by it now, even though it was written in the 50s, has some extra allure.
Because, I mean, at the end of the day, like, and I wanted to say this earlier with the previous question about the characters and the arcs and things like that, but I feel like at the end of the day, this story is not a character-driven story, right? Like, it is Paul's story. Yes, I agree. But it's not a... It's
well,
more...
wait till you finish the book.
Oh, for Christ.
Yeah,
God.
well, okay. But I feel like, so far, the movie, and strictly the movie, is also about all these other forces that are sort of guiding Paul down this journey. Kind of like Harry Potter. I hate to make that comparison, right? Like, Harry Potter, even though he's like the named character of the story, is literally just a way for the audience to keep moving from one plot point to another. And not saying that that's what's happening here, but it's in many cases, like it's the sort of channeled path forward. Okay, I don't know the next half of the movie or the book. I've only read half of it, but yeah, that's another thought there. But anyways, going back to sequel, Steve, what's your opinion?
Let's fucking go. Absolutely. No, it's going to be great. I can't wait. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Meghna?
Well, I'm going to be poetic about this. It's like the author is getting inside in a dark room with a torch, and he's letting you see whatever he wants you to see. But there's more to this room, which I would like to see. Yeah.
You want them to turn on the light for the second one, or do you want to continue following the torch?
Yeah, I think I would continue following the torch.
Nice. Okay, that's pretty cool.
What I would want to do. Yeah.
Bo, given your vast knowledge on this topic,
I don't know that much about it. But you know what the movie is like it is a love message in a lot of ways to the fan base, and I appreciate that. So.
And where do you guys think that it should course correct for the sequel? Because we're all in agreement that we're all excited about the sequel, but like, what needs to be course corrected as a general sort of approach to the storytelling, if anything? You can say nothing.
It's for me. It's so hard to answer that because this really felt like such a setup.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, yeah, there was some action, things happened, but the things that did happen, right? Like, you know, the family being overthrown and
Yeah.
Paul having to run away and meet the Fremen.
Fremen.
What's it?
Fremen.
Fremen. Paul having to run away and meet the Fremen. It was all so like indicated the entire time. None of it was a surprise.
Yeah.
That's
I mean, that's
it's
the
just
point.
kind of like
Yeah.
the whole, like it really just set up and established everything. Where that goes back to my previous point, where man, I wish this was, you know, going into 5 seasons of something cool on HBO. But no, I just think it's so I wouldn't change anything, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, as you can hear, we're pouring our next glass of wine here, so we're getting to the end of this episode. But Carly, take us into the last bit of this topic with this answer.
Well, I agree with Steve's assessment that we were getting set up this time around. I am noting that I'm very interested in and enamored by like the sand as a character. You know, the way that the Fremen interact with it, the way that people aren't from there are scared of it, the way that it is an asset in fighting in these ways, and the way that they are perpetually changing their life to avoid these sandworms. I just want more about them in the sand. I don't even think I care about the plot. I just want to know how these people live in the sand.
Which, just assuming where they're going with the story, I feel like it's going to be more. Because, right, like Zendaya says that, like, oh, this isn't even, like, the beginning of how desert power comes into play. Because I feel like desert power is going to be this next part of the story.
Yes, and I loved how Paul's dad was like a fangirl for desert power.
Yeah. Well, it's just like a strategic point for him, right? Like that air and water versus desert. I was going to say desert. But yeah.
Well, and
it was pretty clear that Frank Herbert was a real fan of the Bedouins for various reasons.
The what?
The Bedouins. The Fremen are pretty much the Bedouins.
What are Bedouins?
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
That's a people group in the Middle East. Like they wandered the deserts and the Arabian Peninsula and so forth.
Oh, okay.
Like,
Give us
it's
a little bit
a
of...
very clear. So yeah, they were part Lords of Arabia, right? Like they that's what he read.
Oh, okay. I see what you're going after.
It's a very like not actually that veiled analogy, and yeah, like yes, Frank Herbert was all about that.
But tell us. Oh, okay, you bring up an interesting topic that I really quickly want to dig into. Is this thematic thing that Carly you brought up? Where is this story sort of structurally positioned in terms of thematics? Like, what is the messaging that it's trying to get to you, and what came across? But
I feel like I can't completely answer that because, like, really, the thematic message actually comes around after part 2.
Mm-hmm. I feel like there's some. I mean, this is just conjecture, but I think that there's the base of the story, and it's so strongly rooted in this Middle Eastern, I'm gonna just call it vibe, because it's hard to like find a word, but like it's a Middle Eastern vibe, almost harkening back to, you know, like Egyptian, Persian, Farsi, in some way, Arabic tones. I think that there is, I don't know about the religious overtones that may or may not show up, but I feel like Messiah is a very religious overtone, and it's not just religious to Islam. It's sort of, I mean, across religion, Messiah is a concept that persists. So I feel like, in some sense, that is something that they're going after, and then you place it into the context of he was probably writing it after Second World War or around there. I think that it kind of puts this juxtaposition of the powerful versus this oppressed, or the oppressor versus the oppressed, and kind of controlling. Carly, I know you want to kind of chime in here. Go for it.
I agree. I'm trying to figure out what the mind frame was of the writer, and Bo earlier said that likely this was kind of a critique of some of those dynamics, but I can't not think about colonialism and the stories of like white people showing up. And so like what I'm anticipating is that Paul is some sort of savior or like he somehow brings peace or democracy or something to the Fremens, or he's accepted into their group. And I'm thinking about like the first settlers of the United States and like all of these dynamics and the fact that when European and Western explorers went to new places, a lot of their journals from their own perspectives said that the people treated them as if they were a god, and so I'm just like, and knowing that this was written in the 50s and 60s, what is the mind frame and what is the suggestion?
I haven't brought this up, mainly because I feel, I'm not going to talk about what it is, but I don't want to bring it up because I feel like it affects probably the second half of the story, but it was actually a part of the first half of the book, which they did not disclose in the movie. So there is actually a key sort of aspect which in some ways like intersects with what you're saying. And I'm really excited about how you take that and how this like next episode that we do about Dune is going to be affected by that note. Magna, Carly, Steve, what do you guys have to say a little bit about the themes and the messaging here?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of what we said. I mean, or what's already been said. This whole, wannabe self-fulfilling God prophecy to this foreign people that the potential oppressor and power feels that the movie implies was just right. And I mean, he even said it at one point. We didn't get enough of the witchy women. I wanted way more witchy
Bene
women.
Gesserit.
Than
The
what
nuns.
we got. But they even said, they were like, the witchy women have put this into their brain. That this person would show up and it's all a bunch of bullshit.
Well,
They're
again,
like, it's not you, then it's going to be a lot of other people. So honestly, the whole thing feels pretty false to me and kind of ridiculous.
I'm not going to say any spoilers. So
but, I mean, right, and if we'll see what happens in part 2, but if that's really where they're going and the movie's clever at all, then they're going to have that whole thing fall on his face when he thinks he's some sort of godlike prophecy when he's really just a dude with a lot of privilege.
The book is actually very clever and it goes in a direction where you may or may not think.
Well, I do think that I feel like it's worth commending that in the 50s he wrote a book that was very strongly driven by female characters, even in the political sense of the world. Like, I mean, it's a part of the movie. There's a throwaway dialogue, but the dialogue is pretty strong in that Bene Gesserits, like, they actually drive politics across these different planets, right? Like, they are
I did love when that woman was like, you made a mistake by having a male.
Yeah.
Like, he's so limited by being a male.
Yeah, which is great, actually, in the book, too.
I want to understand, like, the ethos of the witchy women. And your point, Magna, earlier about we're walking through a dark room with a torch, is there's so many questions about what they represent and why they operate the way they do and what their sort of history and reason for being is. And it may all just be that they're there to put some shit in a white boy's head. Yeah. I mean, it's like, I'm so intrigued about when we turn the light on in that room, what we actually understand about the witchy women.
Yeah, and even, movies where, like, people try to show what's going to happen hundreds of years from now, there's always this environment issue that's, like, highlighted, like, it's out there in the movies, which this movie was not, like, speaking about out loud that much. Yeah, it was subtle, the message about how environment is also a concern because these people are living in the middle of a desert. But it was there, but it wasn't too much.
They've already adapted to it, which is nice. It's not like that's the plot.
Yeah, it's not something repetitive that they're just trying to like highlight the problems that people are facing. Yeah. So that was good. And then the fact that at the end of the movie, one of these people is seen riding these sandworms. I'm just obsessed with them. So which is like there's more to it because it may be the next part they just talk about how people have adapted living around that or with it, whatever. So there's a lot to know and see in the second part.
Can I just have a very strong nerd moment, because that is actually a throwaway line in the first book. Like, it's not even actually a sequence where they're riding I mean, it kind of sort of is, but it's not really a strong, long enough drawn. Maybe even half a page of them writing and
What a visual though for.
But it's great.
Perfect.
That's like it's such a beautiful translation of a singular line, and knowing exactly what to extract from the book to make it a visually appeasing. Because you need to have a reason to make a movie out of a book. Because a book is pretty by itself a good, well written book. It is good enough for people to get what they need to get out of it. But a movie should enhance that experience, and like that's a great example.
And it's also the perfect way to end part one, which it does, because then it's like, what the hell is going to happen next?
Yeah.
And I haven't, read the novel, so but to see what they have made out of it is just intriguing and amazing, and I would like to go back to the novel and see how far have they been able to do justice to the novel. But yeah, it's beautiful.
I agree that the sort of closing scene, spoilers are fine right now, I guess, of like riding this sandworm is a total articulation of like they have adapted and sort of not dominated, mastered, I think is a better word, the environment in which they live.
Yeah.
And that's like really exciting to me. I want to see that in the second one.
Yeah. All right, guys. We're close to an hour into this episode. So I want to ask you guys just this last question. Final thoughts, things we may not have discussed. Just a final nugget that you want to kind of drop in before we say goodbye. Bo, why don't you get us going?
It's good.
It's just so typical of you.
It was very well done. I thought it was a better adaptation of the book than I thought was easily possible, which probably speaks to the effort that they put into it.
Yeah.
A lot of the small things in terms of like translating the narrative voice, which is very first person, to the screen, and still kind of showing the perspective that they're telling the story from, like that the very end scene of we're in the spoiler mode, so the knife fight, like it was told from Lady Jessica's perspective, and like you could tell when they were filming it that like that was the perspective that you were viewing it from. The dialogue was a little different. Won't talk about that, but they did a really good job with it, I thought.
Yeah, and I mean there's like sequences. For example, there's that sequence where both Lady Jessica and I keep saying Channing Tatum, but it's Timothée Chalamet, are in the tent after the Harkonnens have attacked. That entire sequence is actually from Timothée Chalamet's perspective.
And you can tell.
You can tell that he's the one who's having the outburst, he's breaking, and even though his acting, in my opinion, is limited in that sequence, but you can tell that he is clearly dictating where the scene goes as a character in that sequence, and I feel like those like little nuggets were beautiful. The only other thing I'll say, and others sort of jump in here, is that the movie is made at a budget of $165 million. It's already grossed about $100 million over that worldwide. I'm just so happy that a movie that is released day and date on a streaming service is actually... We were in a theater. We had to look for timings and theaters to find the right seats. And even in the theater that we were, it was fairly packed. I love that we've gotten to, or getting to a point where going back to the cinemas is a almost normal experience. So anyways, that.
Yeah, when you said earlier that we haven't had this theatrical experience for a long time, that resonated because you definitely felt it sitting in the room.
Suraj kind of touched on this, but I'm not sold on Timothée Chalamet.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see. I mean, I don't want to put him in the Hayden Christensen
No.
who destroyed the first 3 Star Wars camps,
no.
and certainly this was not directed by George Lucas because overall it was a fantastic movie, but I don't think he had a lot to do, and meh. That's what I'd say. Timothée Chalamet, meh.
I think it's an artifact of the part of the story he's in, which he's very much the passive figure in this first part.
There were some like goofy dialogue moments. I don't
Yeah,
know.
but-
Like,
but-
it was a little.
He could
We'll
have
see.
definitely have had a better spectrum of emotions.
That's fair. Yes, there are parts where I would agree with that. Like I think
He had a
could've
similar
gone better.
performance to Zendaya, who had no lines and just appeared in dreams and just like looked at the camera in weird angles.
Yeah.
I think they both played that role.
With contacts.
But like,
Yeah. Yeah, over and
playing
over
in the
again.
background. Yeah.
Exactly.
What about you, Meghna? Final thoughts, nuggets.
Yeah, it was fun, it was unique, but in a weird way I could keep connecting it back to Game of Thrones and about how
Yeah.
Paul was similar to Brandon Stark
Mm,
and
it-
so many different
the fact that
things
you connected him to Brandon Stark to me tells me about all that I need to know about the limited acting that Timothée Chalamet did in this,
Holy
this
shit.
movie. But anyways, continue.
Whatever,
Sorry.
in a weird way I wouldn't say these two are the same things, but for some reason I could just connect things. Game of Thrones, that's all, but it was fun, it was unique in its own way.
All right.
I don't go to the movies a lot. Who has in the last year? But that's not really like a big thing for me. I'm just fascinated by how we keep telling these stories of these multiple cultures of different people who come together in these inconvenient ways and overcome some shit. And like, we love through movies showing how people are different and we want to categorize them, and then we write them into scripts in these ways that are like sort of bucketed and maybe caricaturized. I don't know. I'm interested in that because when you say Game of Thrones, right, I think the exact same thing is like, this is this community from this part of the world. And you know, it's just these buckets we create, and then we tell these stories about how these buckets of humans interact with each other. I'm just like stuck on it.
I feel like I've been sounding like the flag bearer of cinema this entire episode, but I feel like exactly what you said. Storytelling and cinema are not going to go away. Like, streaming maybe, I mean, it's definitely a thing. Obviously, great content is on streaming. I agree with your point, Steve, like where there's world building, streaming does a great job at it. But I feel that the cinematic communal experience of watching a movie that is an event, or a comedy or a horror that it just affects audiences together, is not going to go away. And it's as like, it goes all the way back to storytelling, right? Like storytelling is something that's not going to go away.
The communal experience, you mean like those teenagers behind us who wouldn't shut up?
Well, Steve told them to shut up, and they shut up. So that was good enough. With that, guys, I wanna thank you all for being here. Thank you, Steve, Carly, for joining our podcast. You guys will come back. I will force you to come back. Bo, Bo, thanks for being here. Meghna, thank
Sure,
you.
no.
I love you for just putting up with me. All right, guys. Thanks for listening in. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, wherever you're getting this. Please, please,
And
please, please.
follow us on Twitter if you can.
Yes, at FilmStop 3. Yeah. All right. Bye, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yo.